Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. The Fan KLGN is the account you can go to watch this live stream with myself, Jason Walker, and Eric Frandsen.
Just be forewarned, you will see our lovely faces.
Yeah, you will actually see our faces. You might be able to see I don't know if you can see the stubble on my face. I don't have to shave very often because I can't really grow a beard much, but that means I don't shave for like 2 or 3 days. But if you're in person, you can usually kind of see it. It may or may not show up on these fancy HD cameras. So
yes. Fun stuff.
I'm sure everyone wanted to know that fact.
Yeah.
Shortened show today, 9:30-15, though. Must be a terrible blow for me to say that, saying today's day should be a 3-hour shift for all the stuff to yak about. We are going to yak about a lot. Mountain West Tournament, that's essentially our entire show today. We are going to go over the Mountain West Tournament. Preview all of the games, all the teams. We're also going to show our bracket predictions, but we're going to go team by team, game by game, what are the matchups going to look like? What do the paths look like for each of these teams? We are going to do basically everything that we can to preview what this Mountain West tournament is going to look like and what the keys are for each of these teams, the storylines to look for, the matchups to look forward to, all that kind of stuff. That is essentially the entire show. We're going to obviously go over the All Mountain West Awards. That's what we're going to start with. But we're going to start with the All Mountain West Awards, all the Aggies that were selected to the All Mountain West teams.
And how many did we get right? I did my tally. So I know I missed on a few.
I know I tallied this and I almost sent out a tweet with this, but it didn't feel right because it was me saying, well, I was right about this. And it's like, okay, but mine counted towards the final tally. I don't know if it counts as a prediction when I'm voting.
Counts. Yeah.
It didn't count as much as the coaches, and obviously there's a lot more media, so it's not like I was the difference between someone getting in or not. But if we're talking about where I guess agreed with everyone else, I was 5 of 5 on first team, 4 of 5 on second team, 4 of 5 on the all defensive team, had player of the year, newcomer of the year, defensive player of the year, and freshman of the year right. Missed on coach of the year, and then was 2 of 5 on third team. I kind of missed out on third team a little bit.
That's pretty good.
But there were a lot of people agreeing with my ballot. Of course, there were fans good. I put my ballot out publicly, and there were a lot of people saying, yeah, I pretty much agree with this. There was obviously some disagreement in some places. People didn't like that I put Drew Fielder on third team, and he did make second team. That's where I was wrong. But why don't we go ahead and start with that? Send in your texts to 435-339-0321. We'll start talking about All Mountain West, and then we'll kind of get into some of those texts as we begin to populate the text line. And if you have any thoughts or questions as we go through, I know we have at least one text regarding the All Mountain West teams. We'll get to that. But send in your thoughts. Again, 435-339-0321. Of course, if you're watching on the Fan KLGN YouTube, you can just see the text line. It's written on the screen, so you don't have to remember it. But let's go through the All Mountain West Awards. Starting at the top, the Mountain West Player of the Year. And as most people were expecting, Mason Falslev ends up being the Player of the Year. He is, I think, of the last 9 Player of the Year awards, 7, including Falslev, have been handed out to a player on the regular season title-winning team. So that's very much a voting trend. I'm not necessarily a fan of that being the voting trend, but that's kind of the way things went. And so Mason Falslev.
Yeah, and I know about the only people who had an issue with this are the diehard UNLV fans.
Basically, people in Nevada, because Chris Murray, he covers Nevada, he had Draw Gibbs Lawhorn, and then basically any UNLV person was probably putting Draw Gibbs Lawhorn. But yeah.
But Mason Falslev, a steady player, very good player, made a lot of different things possible for his team to get the wins that they have. Never won a Player of the Week award.
Yeah.
This season. He won a couple last year. In fact, he won a couple back-to-back, but he didn't win any Player of the Week awards this season, and he was recognized as the Player of the Year, which just illustrates it was a weird year in the Mountain West. But Mason was consistent. He was pretty steady. And it wasn't always scoring. It was rebounding. It was assists, steals, blocks, being in the right place at the right time, helping his team achieve their status as the top team in the Mountain West.
Yeah. 9-5 actually texting this and saying, Jason, did you see what the margin of the results was? You definitely could have been the deciding vote for some of them. They don't, as far as I'm aware, they do not release anywhere the results of the voting. Basically, the best you can do is see which writers who submitted a vote made theirs public. I know there was a few. I haven't searched to see who else voted. I basically saw myself. There's a Grand Canyon guy who who publicized his ballot. And then Chris Murray, I saw his. There's probably somebody else. I know there probably has to be somebody else who made their ballot public, but I haven't really searched for it. Of the three that I saw, Mason was player of the year on two of them. So, and I know Calhoun voted for Mason. Jeff Grammer said that 4 coaches he talked to had Mason as their player of the year. So as far as Mason goes, like, he was probably at least 2/3 of the vote, if not more.
Yeah, it probably wasn't a unanimous selection.
No, I doubt it.
And I get that.
And it wasn't. I know that there was at least one person who didn't vote for Mason.
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't be. I don't like unanimous player of the year votes because it should never be that. Like, it's never not even close. Like, people say, oh, it's this player and it's not even close. It's never that. It's never not even close.
Yeah.
Like I said, I spent a half hour looking at stats trying to decide between 2 players. It was not even close. It was very close.
It would be, while it would be interesting to see everybody's ballots and the results, they don't make that public.
Yeah.
Defensive player of the year,
Miles Bird.
About how we thought it would go.
Yeah, we both had Miles Bird. Fantastic defender. I think someone mentioned this is like 5 straight years a San Diego State player has won Defensive Player of the Year, and I don't really have a problem with that.
No, that's what they do. That's who they are as a team. That's what those coaches preach. They recruit those type of players.
Yeah, that's the biggest
what's
thing
expected of them.
They have those kind of players. They get the Miles Birds and all this. They get those kind of players, and then with the coaching that they obviously emphasize, they turn them into the best defenders in the Mountain West.
Yes. Yeah, no surprise.
Yeah. Newcomer of the year, the guy who was runner-up to player of the year, Draw Gibbs Lawhorn, that was probably unanimous. I don't think anybody else would have gotten a vote.
Yeah. Somebody might have tried to make a case for MJ Collins, but really it should be Drake.
Well, MJ Collins was picked second team, so the only other player who would have gotten, I think, any consideration would have been one of the other guys on first team, which would have been Corey Camper, maybe Jaden Henley.
Yeah.
Like those are the only 2 players who might have gotten consideration.
Yeah, so not a surprise there with Draw Gibbs Lawhorn as the newcomer of the year for the Mountain West.
Yeah. Freshman of the year, Jake Hall. Again, not that big of a surprise. There were some really good freshmen. Tyron Jones, Bullion. Again, although some people debate whether or not he should be a freshman. I don't know if that impacted people voting for him. I'm suddenly speaking. Deshaun Gorey. I'm trying to go through Uriah Tennant. I'm spacing on all the freshmen. Utah State obviously had a couple of.
Yeah.
They weren't like high level freshmen because they were kind of bench players and they had some ups and downs. Elijah Price Adlin Elamine and Elijah Perryman. That's where confusing people with Elijah and then P is the last initial there. So yeah, there were some pretty good freshmen. I'm spacing on a few of them, but San Diego State had a couple of decent freshmen. Elsie Harrington, one of them. But Jake Hall really standing out among them. 6th man of the year, you had Carson Templin. Cue the music, the Max Verstappen music.
Carson Templin, yeah. Do 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 do.
I can get you to sing that, but I can't get you to do the Best of Northern Utah jingle.
No,
I guess not. Was I think the top or maybe second in scoring among bench players. I think he was the top scorer among at least qualified bench players. Again, BJ Davis didn't qualify for 6th man of the year because he started too many times. But I think he led all bench players in rebounds, was toward the top in steals, blocks, probably not assists, but he was the best 6th man. This is a guy who was basically a starter coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Not just because he was actually 6th on the team in minutes during Mountain West play, although he was 5th in minutes throughout the whole season. But yeah, he was basically a starting caliber player in his impact.
Yeah, starter level minutes, closed out games, starter level impact, but did come off the bench. But Carson Templin is one of my favorite players. Just in the last year, he was very active, and he's kind of like the Muppet Animal. He's just kind of crazy and wild and all over the place. But he would make things happen, and his energy was infectious. And last year, a little out of control. More in control this year. He's developed more of a consistent outside threat to his game. It's been fun to watch him grow as a player and develop as a player. And if he can stick around, you just think this is a guy who could be, I don't know if I would say he's going to be an all Mountain West player, but he certainly could be a guy that could be in consideration for first or second team if he continues on his trajectory, just with his level of activity and how he helps his team win games.
Yeah. And then finally, Coach of the Year. This is the one that I missed on, and I don't know. Coach of the Year is just a weird award because I don't know, like what the heck is a criteria supposed to be? Like, because we have this, like the one criteria we seem to have done, and it's the one I went with. It's the how well did you perform based on your expectations. And in that regard, I went with Eric Olin. And I'm sure he got some votes, but Jared Calhoun ends up getting it. So don't call me a homer because I didn't pick the Utah State guy who won it. I picked somebody else. You can't call me a homer because I got this one wrong, and it was the Utah State coach getting it. But Jared Calhoun, if you look at it, the three coaches who have won a regular season Mountain West championship for Utah State, they're the three coaches who have won Coach of the Year in the Mountain West. So Craig Smith did it, and in the 2018-19 season, and of course part of that is because they were picked to finish 8th. They win the Mountain
exceeded
West.
Expectations.
Basically, same thing happened to Danny Sprinkle. Of course, he was also further down the list. He was 8th, I think, in the preseason poll. Yep. But they win the regular season title. He wins it. Of course, Utah State was picked to finish 2nd. They were supposed to be there. They were supposed to be at the top. They were supposed to be winning a Mountain West championship, but they still give it to Jared Calhoun. Partly because there wasn't that, worst to first or, worst to second or something like that kind of coach, as that's typically been who gets the award, is if there's somebody who's picked 7th through 9th and they finish 1st through 3rd. But
in a year where the Mountain West was kind of wishy-washy through the season as to like who were the top teams, and not to say that Utah State was never really in that mix, because they always were.
Yeah.
But there was uncertainty. Was it going to be San Diego State eventually going to win it all? Was New Mexico going to be there? Could Grand Canyon make a run and be that team? But Utah State was consistent and steady throughout. Even though they were a little bit shaky at the end, they had built enough of a cushion. And again, it's a full season award, and winning matters. And winning more games in conference play than anybody else should matter. So it wasn't a real. I mean, I had him as my unofficial official ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah, other good candidates, but I'm not surprised to see Jared Calhoun with the honor.
So let's go with the first team All Mountain West. Again, if you were watching or listening yesterday, you already know who's on first team because you just know who was on my ballot, and that's who it was.
And you hit 100 on that one.
You had Jaden Henley of Grand Canyon, Corey Camper Jr. That was one I was uncertain about. Like, I felt like, am I going to be the only one who puts Corey Camper on? And I was clearly not
Apparently
alone.
not.
I saw at least one other public ballot that had them on there. But then Jake Hall of New Mexico, Draw Gibbs Lawhorn of UNLV, and obviously Mason Falslev, who was left off of one media ballot because the person was confused as to whether or not they should include him on first team, even though he's on his Player of the Year.
Yeah, I know there's some people that don't do that, which I think is odd. But how are you not on the first team if you're the Player of the Year? And I've seen some people like intentionally exclude this, like, well, I've already recognized this player, and he stands or she stands alone above everybody else, so here's everybody else that deserves recognition.
That's not how it's been done in the Mountain West.
But yeah, I disagree with that. It's like, if you're how can you be the Player of the Year and not be on the first team?
Yeah, if you're Player of the Year, you just automatically get on the first team. That's just how it is.
You're among the best and among your peers. These are the top players. And how are you not included in that list? Yeah,
it's a dumb way of thinking, but at least there's a logical through line to it. I can understand it. I just disagree with it.
Yeah, just disagree.
Yeah. Second team All Mountain West. Again, this is where I was 4 of 5.
By the way, I was only 3 of 5. I had MJ Collins and Elijah Price on the first team, and They were not on the first team.
No, they were not. You were overrating MJ Collins a little bit.
Yeah.
Partly because this is only conference play. If you look at just conference play, MJ Collins is not nearly as impressive.
True.
And he was the second leading scorer on the Aggies in Mountain West play. So, as opposed to leading scorer throughout the whole
For
thing.
the season as a whole, yeah.
So second team, you had Drew Fielder. That was the one player that I didn't have on mine. But then Elijah Price, Thomas Love Bullion, Reese Dixon Waters, and MJ Collins. That's your second team.
I was only 2. I only got 2 correct on the second team. I was not nearly as proficient as you were. Of course, I had Elijah Price on the first team, Corey Camper on the second. So you just flip those. I had Jake Hall on the second team, MJ Collins on the first team. You flip those, and then I'm a lot closer.
Yeah, you had the top 10 just a little bit mixed up there.
Yeah. I had 3, not 2. I had
Yeah,
I missed Miles Bird, but he's on there. So I had 3 of the 5.
Yeah, so I had Miles Bird on my second team. That's who I'd flipped for Drew Fielder. And then third team All Mountain West, Jevin Muniz. How do you say his name? He was our point guard. Fantastically good at protecting the ball. Had one of the lowest turnover rates in the entire Mountain West. I think he had the best assist to turnover ratio. Only Drake Allen was only behind him, I believe. Then you had Jake Heidbreder, Fresno State, Mekhi Williams for Grand Canyon, Miles Bird, and then Colby Garland. This is where I went 3 of 5. I had Leland Walker and or I was 2 of 5. Excuse me. I had Leland Walker. I had Drew Fielder on my third team, and then I'm suddenly forgetting who was the other guy I had on there that was off. Oh, I didn't have Mekhi Williams and Jevin Muniz. Those are the 2 players I didn't have, and I'm suddenly forgetting who was on my own third team ballot. I'm gonna have to go check, but I know it was 2 of 5.
I similarly had 2 of 5.
Because I had Garland and Heidbreder on my third team.
I did too, but I also included Fielder, Drake Allen, and Kyle Jorgensen. But Drake Allen was recognized as an honorable mention player, and some of those other players were in other spots. Kyle Jorgensen was not included. He was not.
Mention. I think
probably because of what you had mentioned earlier, because so many games missed due to injury in conference play probably moves him off the list, and other players should be considered ahead of him.
Yeah. So I think I'm remembering now. So I didn't have Mekhi Williams or Jevin Muniz on my All Mountain West team at all. The 2 players I had instead of them were Nana Uwusu-Anane and Leland Walker, where neither of them ended up on one of those. Though if we move to all defensive team, Uwusu-Anane is on all defensive team, as is Elijah Price, Miles Bird, Tyron Jones, and Mason Falslev. I swapped Jaden Henley and Tyron Jones, essentially. So Mountain West voters valuing stocks a little bit more than I did.
Yeah.
Although Jaden Henley was great at those too. I don't know.
And then honorable mention is already mentioned. Some already mentioned. Dylan Andrews and David Buchanan from Boise State. Brandon Reichsteiner from Colorado State. Deshaun Gorey from Fresno State. Nana Owusu-Anane from Grand Canyon. BJ Davis from San Diego State. Tyron Jones from UNLV. Drake Allen from the Aggies. And Leland Walker from Wyoming.
I'm wondering if I am the only reason Leland Walker is on honorable mention.
Yeah, so basically, honorable mention means somebody put one of these guys on one of these lists. They just didn't get enough votes to make it. So the honorable mentions are just everybody else who received some kind of a vote.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, Drake Allen, I know one person asked me like if I had him close, and I was like, I gave him some consideration for third team, but he was probably one of the first that I kind of started cutting from. Okay, there's consideration, but there's others to put ahead of him. I probably would have put 1 or 2 Colorado State guys ahead of him. But yeah, Utah State had 3 guys of all Mountain West caliber. I think the biggest thing with Drake Allen is the impact metrics. Absolutely love him.
Yeah.
Just completely in love with his impact on the game, but statistically wasn't necessarily that great. He did have 4.7 assists. He was leading the Mountain West in assists for most of the year, although he kind of tailed off at the end of the season. And especially wasn't leading the Mountain West during Mountain West play. I think there were 1 or 2 players ahead of him. But yeah, his defense, which I think is underrated, was pretty good, and that's where impact metrics really liked him. So I can see voting for him. Of course, I think all these guys that were put on there's at least some consideration for them for third team. But I think even though I did have obviously a ballot that was different in a lot of respects, obviously with it being similar, maybe I'm kind of biased, like considering how many I agreed with. I think ultimately they got it pretty well right. Where obviously, again, I disagree with 3 of the teams on third team in terms of my ballot, but I have no problem with all the guys who made it on there. All of them were deserving. The all defensive team, I do have one disagreement where I do think Jaden Henley should be on defense all over Tyron Jones, but you could also argue Tyron Jones over Mason Falslev in that same regard. Mason Falslev was the last guy to make it on my all defensive team. So there's because the defensive metrics actually didn't like Mason Falslev and Tyron Jones very much, which that's why I didn't include Tyron Jones, because the defensive metrics were not a big fan of his. So yeah, he had the steals and blocks, but there was a lot of empty steals and blocks as far as his defensive impact.
Well, those are the lists. Those are the awards. Those are the honors from the Mountain West as announced today. You can see the full list on CashValleyDaily.com. I got some texts coming in that reacting to some of these recognitions and these honors and how the Mountain West formatted it in comparison to other conferences and how they do their postseason awards. So we'll dive into that if you want to weigh in as well. 435-339-0321.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. And a reminder, I want to thank one of our sponsors, Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Again, indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during the dry winter month. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer and sending them deeper into your lungs. and making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. So let's get to our Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Some questions and thoughts from our listeners on the All Mountain West teams. 4488 texting in this earlier today, saying, what are your thoughts on having 5 guards on the first team? I kind of like just picking the 5 best players since basketball positions are so fluid. And to me, it's not so much about the fluidity of positions, but it is interesting that, like, if you took all 5 of those players and said, could you make an actual lineup that you are willing to put on the court? It wouldn't be very often, but it would be a feasible lineup. You'd have Jaden Henley playing center, which, depending on some teams, like if you put him on Utah State, there is a world in which he might play center for like half a second.
Yeah.
If you needed to. But he's definitely not a center. He's a small forward, power forward. Kind of like, would you play Adlan Elamine at center? Probably not. Or Kingston Tosi, like eventually when he starts playing. But to me, like, I don't like where some people say you got to do 3 guards and 2 forwards or 2 guards and 3 forwards. I just don't agree with forcing that, because I think the NBA still does it or had been doing it for the longest time that way. And usually, if you have to do it that way, it's usually not going to be that much of a problem. But like this year, and again, I'm kind of biased because the first team went exactly the way I voted, but those are the 5 best players.
Yeah, I agree. If you force people in by position, then you're going to leave somebody out who deserves to be recognized on the first team. Because while this guy may have been the best center, he was not among the 5 best players in the league. And so I prefer this way. I know some people are like, oh, this is a travesty. We should do it by position. It's like, no, we want to recognize the best.
Yeah.
Like why are we having any additional qualifiers on what means you're the best?
Like these are the
best players.
Yeah, these are the 15 best players, and we're organizing them in groups of 5. 5 best players, next best 5, next best 5. Like, why are we rewarding, like if a center is like the 30th best player in the league, but if he's the 3rd best center, he would be getting All Mountain. Like that happens in the NBA. It's happened where it's like, if you're a top 3 center, you're in the All NBA, even if you're the 100th best player in the league.
Yeah. Like now, I understand that if there's some back and forth where some conferences are awarding like 10 first team players. Yeah. So if you're not doing it by position, why are you only limiting it to 5? So I get that, but the premise is still the same. Like you're when you have a roster on the court, when you have guys on the court, who are the 5 best players on the court? It's not who are the 10 best players on the court. It's who are the 5 best players in the league. And then 5 stems from those positions. Yeah. But I'm still a fan of keeping it at 5. That's your first team. It makes it hard. It makes it a challenge to figure out separating first from second or second from third. But at the end of the day, I still think that's the right number because it is based on who's on the court. Now, these guys aren't by position, but still, I prefer keeping it at 5 and just recognizing the 5 best.
Yeah, the way that we treat All Mountain West these days, like where we talk about it as being the 5 best players. Like if you want to have an award where it's like, here's the best player at every position. Okay, fine, go ahead. But yeah, with college, Jaden Henley's listed as a guard. And in that same sense, he is the same as Draw Gibbs Lawhorn. He's not. They are not the same player. And I'm not talking caliber of player. They're just completely different archetypes of players. And so then you start, getting into these long conversations like, is this player a center or is he a forward or is he a guard? Is he a point guard or a shooting guard? Like considering there's no way to really, accurately parse all this out. Like last year, when you looked at Utah State's official lineup card, Abin Gadarazzi was listed as a guard. So Take that. There are
Yeah.
teams that list their entire roster as guards on purpose. And there are basically 18 centers in the entire NCAA. If you look at positions, official listed positions, it's not literally as few as 18, but it's probably
it's a very minor group.
only about a third or maybe half of the entire NCAA has a player on their roster listed officially as a center. You'll have you could have a 7'10" player, 500 pounds, and he's listed as a guard or a forward. It's son, you are a center.
Yeah, well, the basketball has evolved, right? It's positionless basketball for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And so why are we shoehorning people in to these positions? So recognize the 5 best, keep it at 5. Don't limit it based on the position they're listed under officially on the school's website on their roster. Just recognize the best 5.
Yeah,
keep it at that.
Yeah, and that's the way I like to have it. Other texts on the Young Power Sports Logan text line 5338. Any updates with the agriculturalist spring football? Also, any movement on the Anderson and Bovee lawsuits? I've not checked in on the lawsuits. As far as spring football, they're supposed to be getting going, I think, later this month.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything official on any of those. I do know that at least I'd heard that. Oh gosh, now I'm spacing on her full name. Micah McKinney, who was the attorney for the university, who was definitely a part of Elizabeth Cantwell and Diana Sabo and their actions against Anderson and Bovee and Crosby. That group, she is no longer with the university. This is kind of a recent development. She was kind of the last one of that group that was still on campus, and from what I understand, she is no longer on campus. So,
isn't she a defendant in the case?
She was specifically named in one of the cases. Yes. So, yeah, the university, there's and those outside the university have been working to clean house, and she was one of the last to go, and now she's gone. But as far as what's progressing next on these lawsuits, I can't tell you. I don't know. But it's worth checking into.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's worth checking in on. I've not done it in a minute. And if ideally, if it actually goes to trial, it's probably worth attending one of the days. If I can pull
absolutely.
It off.
Yeah.
I never personally attended court. I've watched court cases, some even live, but always video, never in person. 8968 sending in the text. Carson Templin's jingle should be Carson Templin, hoop it up.
8945, by the way.
Oh, did 8945? Sorry.
Yes.
I attributed your text to somebody else. 8945.
Carson Templin, hoop it up. Okay.
There's a couple of good ones. I do like the taking the Max Verstappen jingle and putting Carson Templin on it, but I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you could make that, but one of them's caught on, so it's hard to turn it back. 9315 saying, what are the odds that fans and media of the teams down south blow off every that wins in Mountain West Awards USU basketball coaches and players have done is nothing to write home about? Answer pretty high. Probably do the same with UVU basketball. P.S. Any news on the USU basketball with the WAC?
Ooh, it's juicy today.
Yeah, it is. It got insane.
It went to another level today.
We're almost to the point of UVU trying to get court orders and having police officers and government officials forcing the WAC to allow them to play basketball. We're almost to that stage.
So the latest is that the WAC, kind of out of nowhere, issued a statement today saying Utah Valley was directed to post $1 million. I forget how.
Basically in escrow with basically pay the court to hold $1 million.
Put it in holding so that it's there.
Because that's what the WAC is demanding.
Waiting on the judgment.
The court is deciding whether or not they have to pay that, but Utah Valley has to put that money aside in case they lose as directed by the court.
Yeah, so the WAC says they haven't posted their money. They have until 5 o'clock today or their team is not going to be able to participate.
Yeah.
And they're the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
They're the top team. And so they're like, you have until 5 o'clock today or we're locking the door on you. And so Utah Valley responds like, wait, hang on. This was a directive. This wasn't an order by the court. If it was an order by the court, we would have no choice to do it right away. But there was no deadline that was placed.
Yeah, but
this deadline is very arbitrary, came out of nowhere, and the WAC is like, has to be done by today.
Yeah, and even then, Utah Valley, and again, follow Bryce Larson.
Yes, Bryce Larson at Larson Sports, Larson ON.
Yeah, he's been on top of this. I'm pretty sure we're both drawing from his reporting.
Yes.
Where he's posting sections of the court orders and all these different things. But from, again, his follow-up reporting with all this, saying that Utah Valley, the day that preliminary injunction that the WAC is trying to say, the preliminary injunction told Utah Valley to submit the $1 million, like part of that, or Utah Valley, like the same day that was sent out, contacted the court saying, okay, how do we put this money in escrow? And so Utah Valley, from the second that they were directed by the court, again, not ordered, but directed to put this money in, Utah Valley has been on the ball saying, how do we pay this? And the judge said, we'll tell you. And so Utah Valley is perfectly in line with the directive.
We're doing what we were asked on this.
And the WAC is trying to, at the 11th hour, seconds before midnight, throw this thing where they can say, oh, you're not, you can't be in the tournament. And honestly, and I'm going to ascribe intentions to this, and maybe I shouldn't, but to me, it just comes across as the WAC trying to throw a wrench in this, knowing that they are in the wrong. They are just flat out in the wrong. There's not really a way, because again,
it's totally inexcusable to say, you haven't done this, you have until 5 o'clock today to come up with $1 million. That's extortion.
Yeah, they have no authority to do that. It is not their money. It isn't even meant to be paid to them. It's meant to be paid to the court and potentially handed back to UVU if they win the lawsuit. It's just they're forcing UVU to set aside the money to make sure that they do have it and that they aren't going to try and, play dirty if they lose and hold on to it. And so the WAC, essentially knowing they are absolutely in the wrong and acting directly against a court order from the judge, are trying to pull this at the last second, knowing that there's not really much in the way of time to absolutely force the WAC into these measures. And mind you, we're 20 minutes away from that deadline. We're going to be on the show when this deadline happens. We're going to be on air and see what the WAC's decision is. Now, the Utah Valley did submit something to the court saying, these are reasons we're in complete coordination with the court, and saying the court shouldn't even consider this. But if the WAC just tries to go ahead with this and ignore the court, again, this is just about being petty. The WAC isn't trying to follow the law, follow their own rules. They are trying to get at Utah Valley in whatever way they possibly
they're flat
can.
out babies. Yeah, it's just so childish what they're doing.
And that's why I say we're maybe at the point of having literal government officials show up at the WAC tournament and say, a basketball game is happening with Utah Valley, and if you don't comply, there could be people in handcuffs being marched out the door.
You cannot prevent this team from taking the court.
Yeah. And that is completely out of line from the WAC to be trying this kind of bull crap.
Oh, it's asinine. So when I saw some of this, I came up with a few other alternative definitions for the acronym WAC. Instead of Western Athletic Conference, WAC in this case means willful abuse of control, or withholding access to coerce, or weaponized access control. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous what they're doing and how they're trying to impose their will on this. It's like, look, if Utah Valley hadn't done something that the court asked them to do, that's on the court to hold Utah Valley accountable. The WAC has no place in stepping into this. This is way outside of the bounds. So this is totally ridiculous, totally childish, and I hope they get their butts spanked for this by various different courts that get involved.
Well, they're fixing to have that happen to them if they're not careful.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll actually get to the promised showcase here, our preview of the Mountain West tournament. Every team, every potential matchup, everything we can get into.
How's the bracket going to play out?
Yeah, how's it look? We'll have our predictions of the bracket. So we'll have that coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back in to the Full Court Press. A reminder that Cache Valley's largest and most complete power sports service shop is now open at Young Power Sports Logan. They service all brands, makes, all sizes, motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, and more. No guesswork, no shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. They can help with Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo. They handle them all. In and out, done right, guaranteed. Pickup and delivery is available within a 25-mile radius, so get back on the road, the trail, or the track fast. And schedule your service now at 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports Logan Service Department, 755-7111. So let's look at the Mountain West Tournament, Eric. Mountain West Tournament bracket, it's been set. We've obviously known it since Saturday. All the teams lined up, 1 through 12. We got 4 rounds, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Let's talk about these matchups.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting tournament. I'm glad Utah State's on the 1 seed side of the upper bracket. But I've got UNLV beating Wyoming, Nevada beating Air Force, Colorado State beating Fresno State, and Boise State beating San Jose.
Yeah, so let's jump in really quick. I've got on, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got Eric's bracket up here on the live stream. So we've got your entire bracket is at UNLV beating Wyoming, Nevada over Air Force, Colorado State over Fresno, and Boise over San Jose.
Yeah, I really didn't struggle too much on those. I know Wyoming punked UNLV earlier in the year by 32, but that was in early January. I think UNLV is a little bit different team now, and it's going to be on their home court. So
yeah, that's going to
matter.
That should be a helpful difference. But yeah, we'll see if they can focus enough to make sure they actually beat Wyoming without looking ahead to Utah State.
Right. So in the quarterfinals, it'll be Utah State and UNLV, and the Aggies have struggled against the Rebels, but I think third time's a charm for Utah State.
Yeah.
Grand Canyon and Nevada went to overtime last time they played each other. Grand Canyon had that game and fumbled the bag. Nevada made them pay, won in overtime. However, I think Grand Canyon gets the win in that matchup in their grudge match. San Diego State and Colorado State, they split the regular season, but I got San Diego State coming out on top. Colorado State, one of the hottest teams coming into this tournament, but I still think San Diego State's a better team. And then New Mexico and Boise State, Broncos are also hot. And this is one of my upsets. I got Boise State beating New Mexico, advancing to the semifinals.
I think that's the first upset you've got on the entire bracket.
Mostly, yes. Everything else is chalk. But then USU Grand Canyon in the semifinals. Aggies, I got winning that one. I feel like Utah State matches up well with Grand Canyon. I know they had their issues in Phoenix, but I think they figured a few things out in Logan and on a neutral site. With a good crowd, they'll get it done. San Diego State, Boise State. Like I said, Boise State, the hottest team coming into this tournament right now. And I got another upset with the Broncos beating the Aztecs. And it'll be the Aggies and the Broncos in the championship. And I really like how Utah State matches up with Boise. So I've got the Utah State Aggies winning the whole thing as the automatic qualifier. And probably the only team to come out of the Mountain West into the NCAA tournament.
You don't think third time's the charm applies to Boise against the Aggies?
No.
No,
it'll be tough. I think it would be very tough. But I think ultimately Utah State is just too much to handle.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then on the other side, we'll reveal my bracket. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the entire bracket as it's laid out for Eric Frandsen. But long and short, he's got Utah State and Boise State in the championship, and the Aggies winning it all. I'll reveal my bracket. There are some key differences I have in this bracket. So we'll reveal that coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Napa Auto Parts, they got batteries, headlights, wiper blades. It's all in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. They got Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits for only $49.99. Air fresheners, shop towels, seafoam, and more on sale at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. So check them out today. So we looked at Eric's bracket, his thoughts on how the Mountain West tournament is going to go. He's got Utah State facing Boise State in the championship game and the Aggies winning. I've got it a little bit differently. We'll swipe to mine. Those of you watching on YouTube can now see my bracket prediction. And I've got a few differences. So, Eric, you've got UNLV winning that initial game against Wyoming.
Yeah.
I've got the Cowboys pulling it off there. I have a feeling that UNLV is going to be like, if UNLV plays Utah State, I almost feel like they live, their entire existence is predicated on them beating Utah State at this point. Like, they take way too much pride in that. And so they play at their absolute best against the Aggies, and they're going to end up overlooking Wyoming. Now, what may end up helping is the fact that Wyoming did, pants them in Laramie. That may help them focus on that game. But I have a feeling that Wyoming, who is also playing pretty well right now, I believe they won, I think it was either 5 out of the last 6 or 6 out of their last 7 games, which included winning at Grand Canyon. And then I believe against Nevada. I'm not 100% sure. I may have to double check that. But I was looking at their schedule. They'd won some solid games in their last little bit there. But aside from that, I have the rest of the first round going the same. And to be honest, a lot of the second round as well. I have Utah State winning, granted, over Wyoming in that case. I have Grand Canyon. Did you have Grand Canyon winning that other game?
I did. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Grand Canyon winning. I had to check on my own side here. Grand Canyon beating Nevada, who I also have moving on. San Diego State beating Colorado State. And I also have Boise State beating New Mexico.
Interesting.
We have the same upset there. And so I have Utah State going up against Grand Canyon, San Diego State against Boise State. Although I basically have the opposite results. I have San Diego State advancing to the championship and Grand Canyon defeating Utah State. I know I disagree that Utah State matches up well against Grand Canyon. I don't think they do. They overcame that in their win at home, but I think you go back to a neutral site. It'll be a very close game. It'll be a very competitive game, but I think Grand Canyon will manage to eke that one out, and they'll face San Diego State, who I think San Diego State will manage to pull off third time's the charm against Grand Canyon. And San Diego State, where defense matters so much in a tournament environment, it's kind of a coincidence, but also kind of not a coincidence that I put, in my opinion, the 2 best defensive teams in the conference in the championship game. Their offenses are a bit iffy. If Grand Canyon and San Diego State end up not making it, it'll be because they lose the game 61-67, where their defense will show up, but then their offense will just not show up. That'll be how either Grand Canyon or San Diego State lose a game in this tournament. But as long as their offense doesn't just completely go kaput, then I think they're ultimately going to make it to the championship game, and one of those two will come out. I just happen to have picked San Diego State, despite losing, getting swept by Grand Canyon in the regular season.
Well, I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to this tournament. I think that there's a lot of really interesting matchups. Teams that are coming into this tournament with momentum, others that are limping in. Can they recapture who they were before, or is this the new them? And these 3 days in Las Vegas are going to be really 4, I guess, for some teams.
Yeah, 3 days for you and I, but it's 4 days.
I think it's going to be entertaining and a lot of fun. And I hope there's a good contingent of Aggie fans who make the trip down there to cheer on Utah State, because Grand Canyon's going to travel well, New Mexico travels well, San Diego State travels well. So they need a good Aggie fan base there to cheer them on.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us here in the first hour. We'll continue our preview of the Mountain West Tournament coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back into the Full Court Press second hour. It'll be a little abbreviated, though. We'll only have about half of the second hour, and we're probably not going to go much longer on YouTube if we go longer at all. I've got to go home and prepare for flying out of Utah tomorrow, so I've got some last-second things to do. I got to get a haircut. Got to meet some other things, finish packing.
Need a new fresh cut.
Yeah, I do. It's getting a little bit long, so I got to look.
I got mine yesterday.
Yeah, I got to look my best for.
I don't know that I look my best, but I got a cut.
While I still have my hair, I've got to look nice while I've got it. So I'm like slowly going, I think, at least a little bald, but getting the extended widow's peak essentially is what I've got. The worst kind of balding, the M head.
The M head? Okay.
As opposed
I've
to.
never heard that.
Yeah, there's the M head. There's just the straight up extended forehead, which is how my dad went bald. Then there's the bald patch on the back, which is probably the second worst because like everyone else can see it but you.
Yeah, and that's me.
Yeah, I've never really noticed. Must not be that bad. But yeah, so while I still got my hair, I'm gonna use it as best I can. So
yeah, there you go.
This
is not a show about
this isn't
hair loss.
This isn't about hair loss. We've got some stuff on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We're going to continue our conversation about the Mountain West tournament and our predictions. We gave our predictions earlier in the show. If you're on the live stream, you can just rewind it and see the visual of our predictions where Eric has the Aggies going all the way, defeating Boise State in the championship game. I have the Aggies losing in the semifinal to Grand Canyon, and the Lopes eventually losing to San Diego State in the conference tournament. So I have the Mountain West as a 2-bid league, whereas you have them as a 1-bid league.
Yeah, there was just something about a bad taste in my mouth seeing Grand Canyon in the championship game.
Yeah, they would.
I couldn't do it.
They would absolutely love that one.
Yeah.
We have 5662 texting in saying, in case of a loss, who has better numbers? Cowboys or Rebels? We're talking about like metrics for it being like not as bad against the Aggies' resume. The Rebels would, I think,
or
be
in
the
case
better?
of a loss, if Utah State loses.
Yeah, if Utah State loses.
Not really sure the question. 5662. If you wouldn't mind reframing.
Yeah, just clarify a little bit for us.
Love to answer it if I could.
6436 saying, Jason, that's blasphemy. You'll smoke it. I don't know if I'm allowed to read. It's not that bad. It's not, yeah.
You'll smoke a turd in heck for that GCU pick.
And sent in there's a little winky face.
And a winky face.
So 6436 is not being mean to me, just some good old fashioned banter there.
Yes.
But yeah, I didn't imagine that was going to be popular with our listeners.
It's unlikely. It rarely happens that a tournament goes chalk.
Yeah.
Upsets will happen. It's just who it will happen to.
Yeah, and it's been a minute, I think, since the 1 seed has won the entire tournament. Because it didn't happen last year because Colorado State won it.
Right.
And the 1 seed didn't even make it to the title game. Utah State was the 1 seed the year before that, and they didn't even make it to the title game. And I'm suddenly forgetting what the bracket was like the year before that.
While you look that up, I'll hit a few more texts. 2947. Anything could happen. Mountain West is wide open this year. If it's not the Aggies, give me the Lopes. Okay, 2947's cheering for the Antelopes in place of the Utah State Aggies.
So I'll go. So yeah, the last 2 tournaments, it was Colorado State. 1 seed didn't make the final. 1 seed didn't make the final in the 2024 tournament. In 2023, however, San Diego State were the outright champions, and they did sweep both titles. That was the Ryan Odom year, I think, actually, where they beat Utah State 62-57. That was where I believe it basically did go chalk, at least as far as the 1 and 2 seed making it. Or was Utah State the 3 seed? Because they tied with Boise for Utah State might have been the 3 seed that year. But either way, Utah State was on the other side of the bracket and 1 out of the 2 versus 3. So it went mostly chalk. But yeah, so it's been a minute since the 1 seed has even made. So maybe we're due. Maybe we're due for a 1 seed to make the Mountain West Championship.
It's time.
Yeah.
9315 with a couple of texts. Will Jason get Ajay some s'mores, or will Eric have to send them by sheep to Vegas? Okay. Jason, O ye of little faith, do better, be better. And does Jason have money on Grand Canyon stocks?
Maybe I do. I've got Lope stock, and I'm going to place a bet on them when I get to Vegas.
Publicly traded university.
Yeah, basically. Prediction markets, Eric. Prediction markets.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, does their
purple.
stock actually go up with every win and loss in men's basketball?
Wow, I don't know.
I highly doubt that.
That would
So
be wild.
there's a lot else that goes with that because, again, they are a for-profit institution. Their whole thing is making money, as opposed to, other universities, which are definitely not about making money.
Hey, by the way, I know we want to still talk about this and we have limited time here, but there was this 5:00 deadline set by the WAC.
Yeah.
To withhold Utah Valley from their upcoming tournament. Well, the Utah Attorney General's office issued an order this afternoon smacking around the WAC. Like, go back and look at the order. There is nothing in there that says you can do what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
The order expressly says you have to reinstate them. You cannot prohibit them from participating and competing. You are in violation of this court order. And in also going so far as to say, we've been in contact with the university like last week about this money. And that's between us and the university. You are totally out of line in what you're trying to do here. So Utah Attorney General's office smacking around the WAC saying, you guys are totally out of line. And you cannot bar them for participating.
I just get the feeling that the WAC woke up this morning, the people, or maybe even the last couple of days, because, again, this felt premeditated with they wanted to try this last second thing to try and screw over Utah Valley, knowing that they're in the wrong. But it was basically this, somebody woke up, whether it was their legal team or somebody in the office saying, hey, why don't we try this? And we're going to do a last second, and we're just going to put it in there. Because, otherwise, or what ends up happening with this is the WAC just embarrassed themselves. That's all they did here.
Oh, yeah.
All they have done is make themselves look like a bunch of morons.
Yeah, they're whiny little babies sitting around like, we're not getting our money. They're not doing this or that. And we don't like the judge's order. You know what? They haven't paid their money, so we're going to hold them out.
Yeah.
It's like, boo-hoo, little babies.
This is when you realize,
cry me a river.
Like when you're a kid and you think all adults are smart and they all know what they're doing. This is the kind of stuff you see that you realize everyone are idiots.
Oh my gosh. They're so dumb. They're so dumb.
Like, people get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary to act like this. It's like there are some really idiotic people who are theoretically successful in life.
Yeah, Derek Brown, Utah's Attorney General, in his order issued today, earlier this afternoon, says, in summary, at the very end, says, the action threatened by the WAC today to bar UVU from the WAC basketball tournaments would be an overt violation of this court's preliminary injunction order.
Yeah, it's just so dumb.
It's like, you can't do this.
935 saying the WAC sounds like UNLV Rebel Girl on Twitter. Yeah, there's people like the way the WAC is acting. It's like some of the idiots on Twitter who are mad about losing their gambling thing or whatever. It's like they are just outright wrong. Like, for a conference, when the Mountain West and Pac-12 are throwing barbs at each other, at least they have some legal ground to stand on. The WAC is just being dumb for free in front of everyone. They're like walking out in public and pulling their own pants down, being like, hey, everyone, look at us. And it's like, and all they get for it is to look like idiots even further. I've never seen a conference like this just have a public meltdown. They're the crazy person on the street corner yelling who knows what.
Yes.
Just absolutely crazy. So
nuts. So anyway, we knew there was this 5:00 deadline that the WAC kind of imposed out of thin air. And now we've seen a court response to this. So kind of an update as it's happening in real time.
Let's hope the WAC still tries it, because I want to see them act dumb even more.
Yeah, I want to see Utah Highway Patrol troopers down there, like, escorting the team on the court and like, you try to get this team off the court.
Yeah.
You got to come through us first.
We dare you. Let's get back to the Mountain West tournament. 5338 saying, what's the prize for filling out a perfect bracket?
Depends on where you fill it out.
Yeah. Well, he's
tournament bracket?
I think he's talking about the Mountain West
tournament bracket. Because I know it was Warren Buffett was doing like what?
Yeah, he did the $1 billion thing
$1
a while back. I think there's some people that might still do it, but mostly because, it's free marketing because you sign up and you allow your email to be sent spam. Like it's a free email
agree
list.
to receive marketing messages.
Yeah, basically that's the thing there. And they know they're never going to have to give it out because nobody will ever fill out a perfect bracket.
Yeah.
Just the odds are
so stacked against you.
So thoroughly stacked against you, even with the millions who fill one out every year. But yeah, if you fill out a perfect Mountain West tournament bracket, I'll give you a pat on the back or something if I see you in Vegas.
Yeah.
If you fill out, if you can prove to me you fill out, like post it on Twitter or something like that, your bracket, and if you can, and so if you have proof that you made it before the tournament, basically on social media, or if you want to text in a picture of your bracket to the text line 435-339-0321, we'll count that as
ours
your
are
evidence.
posted on the YouTube.
Yeah, ours are on YouTube. There is documentation. We put it in. You can send it to the text line at any point before the tournament starts, whether or not we read it on the air, if you want. And I'll give you a pat on the back or something.
Yeah. Our adoration for your brilliance.
Your true brilliance at predicting a 12-team bracket, which is hard, though it is much easier to do than a 68-team bracket.
Yeah, not impossible. It's a challenge, but
so I mean, looking at the bracket, looking at these teams. So we've predicted who we think's going to go all the way, but if you're looking at a team to make a surprise run, I mean, I guess we're both kind of on board with Boise State, but like, how likely do you think runs by Nevada, Colorado State, or Boise State can be? Because especially those latter two, Colorado State and Boise State, those are your two hottest teams to end the season. Colorado State only getting tripped up at the end by Boise State in Idaho. So, like, do Boise State and Colorado State meet each other in what is supposed to be the 2 versus 3 semifinal? Do we have a 7 versus 6 semifinal?
It could happen.
Yeah. Do we see a UNLV versus Grand Canyon or Nevada semifinal? Do we have a semifinal that does not include any of the top 4 teams? Like, how likely do you think it is that we have a semifinal that does not include one of the 4 teams that gets a bye?
I think it's very possible. I mean, there's probably years where it's like, no, the top 3 teams or top 4 teams, they're probably pretty safe. Maybe one of those is going to lose, but this year, the way that the Mountain West has happened, the way the top teams have played, it's not like there's 1 or 2 teams that are clearly above everybody else. Yeah, Utah State won more games, but barely. And so it's close. 1 through 8, any one of those teams could have a great game and beat anybody among those other top 8 teams. And might even go to 9. I don't know that Wyoming could have sustained success like that, but any 1 through 8 could win a couple of games and totally disrupt the tournament, because they've proven that over the course of the season. You don't have anybody that's just been really dominant. And yeah, Utah State has more wins. They beat more teams, but they showed they had flaws. And so did San Diego State, and so did Grand Canyon. And so it's that's why I think this year is going to be a really entertaining tournament, because you've got those teams at the top who have flaws, but you also have teams kind of in the middle in that lower part of that top 8 who are playing their best basketball right now. Boise State and Colorado State could easily carry on their momentum that they were building at the end of the last 3 weeks, and roll through this Mountain West tournament, kind of like what Colorado State did last year.
Yeah, it is interesting for the reason, as you said, like there are teams that are at the top that aren't as hot right now, and the teams in the middle are. Because look at Utah State. They lost 3 of their last 5. San Diego State, they lost 4 of their last 6. New Mexico, they lost 3 of their last 4. Grand Canyon, they're the best of the top 4, and they only won 3 out of their last 5. And 2 of those wins were Air Force and Fresno State, 10th and 12th in the conference.
Yeah.
So
congratulations.
They're on a bit of a roll, but they lost at home to Wyoming and at Utah State. Their 2 toughest games, arguably, were both losses there. But yeah, as you mentioned, Boise State, they've won, 5 in a row? They've won 7 of their last 9, including 5 in a row. Colorado State, they won 8 in a row and have won 8 of their last 9. The only loss was to the team we just mentioned, who's won 5 in a row going into the tournament. And UNLV, it's a little spotty. You could say they've won through, 2 of their last 3, but they're also 3-3 in their last 6. But depending on how far back you want to go, you could say they've won 6 of the last 9. So they're a little bit more hectic, but still they're a team that you could argue has more momentum as an 8 seed than the top 4 seeds. So that's where we talk so much about how momentum plays a role in March Madness, both with the conference tournaments, and we discuss it in context of the NCAA tournament. The top 4 teams do not have momentum.
No.
None of them do. The best you can say is Grand Canyon whooped up on 2 of the easiest teams on their schedule. But Utah State, San Diego State, New Mexico, they've all got losing records in their last 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, they all limped into the conference tournament.
So do they maybe benefit from a bit of rest where they can kind of regroup and they'll have a more rest, or is there going to be rust and the fact that they're all kind of struggling a little bit? Like, San Diego State, they lost their most recent game to Colorado State. New Mexico, I believe they lost their most recent game to New Mexico. I'm suddenly spacing on that. Boise State won the most recent game between the Lobos and the Broncos, although that was back on February 7th, so we're a month out from that. So it's like, some of these, 6 versus 2 and 7 versus 3 or vice versa, those could be some, 7 versus 2 and 6 versus 3. Those could be matchups where it's like the underdog in that has the win in the most recent matchup.
Yes.
And we're, I think in some of those cases close in the other matchup. So it'll be really interesting to see how many of those upsets get pulled. It's hard to pick chalk in this one. The only games that I'm really confident about who's going to win are Nevada against Air Force, Colorado State against Fresno State, and Boise against San Jose. But even Fresno State, with how they are as a team, if they get hot in the first half and finally have a game where they don't fade down the stretch, do they manage to pull it off against Colorado State?
Well, tournaments are often, not always, but maybe not often, but there are definitely times, and there's a lot of cases that support this, but tournaments can be won or lost with a team who has a player that gets hot, a player. And so Fresno State, that could be Heidbreeder. If he's making his shots from outside, if he's dropping threes all over the place, and other teams can't figure out how to defend him or slow him down.
Deshaun Gorey kind of in that conversation as well.
Yeah. Draw Gibbs Lawhorn is in that mix as well.
Yeah.
But we've seen this over time, conference tournaments especially, not so much in NCAA tournaments because there's a little bit more of a break in who you play. But in conference tournaments, from game to game, if there's a player that gets hot, who can create his own shot and can score points, he can carry his team deep into that conference tournament, even into winning it all. But does he have a supporting cast that can help him?
Yeah, you've got to have a supporting cast. And I think the biggest thing is defense. If you can play good defense, you don't necessarily have to play elite defense, but play good defense and have that, have an offense that can manufacture points in unideal situations when things aren't going particularly well, or even if you have a player who starts 0 of 7 from the field, but then they go off in the second half. You can have that kind of player. Just someone who can create offense out of seemingly thin air. In a perfect world, your offensive system will create points anyway, but sometimes that just fails. The other team has a good response to what your plays, and they have a good game plan against you. Again, this is the third time you'll be facing a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
They'll likely have good counters. So can you, make great offensive plays in ideal situations against teams that know you inside and out?
So let me ask you, would you rather play a team that you played not that long ago, face them again, or have a team that you only played once, but it was a while ago, like a couple months ago? Because on the one hand, it's there's a strong familiarity. We just saw these guys. And so we can't hide anything. They know who we are. We know who they are. But on the other, if it's been months ago, it's maybe we're different. Maybe they're different. And we may need to spend a little bit more time in film to figure out who they are now.
I mean, if you're really confident, if you have experienced players, and a coaching staff that you're really confident can account for the differences that are going to happen, how teams change, and maybe you're playing a more inexperienced team. Like, say if you're Utah State, and I know this wouldn't apply to New Mexico because they just barely played them, but like, say you had a younger team like New Mexico, or you could say Fresno State, where they've actually got a lot more younger players. Those younger players are going to kind of struggle with preparing because they'll think back to what it was last year. They won't really have the experience of knowing how teams change and how scouting reports can change. Whereas the Aggies are full of guys with experience. Carson Temple, Mason Falslev, MJ Collins, Drake Allen. They're full of guys with experience. They have 2 underclassmen in their rotation. These are the players that know the ins and outs. They've got a good experienced coaching staff. And so they'd be able to overcome, the challenges of that. And the trick is, like, both teams are facing the same challenge of potentially not understanding their opponent properly if it's been a long time, or if there's a lot of familiarity. Both teams have a lot of familiarity, know what parts of the game plan to recycle, know what parts to shift. Like, both teams are working from the same, point of reference. The question is, can you do a better job of overcoming the downsides of that? Because if there's familiarity, they know your playbook a little bit better. They've practiced it more recently. And again, the other one, it's like your team could have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So can you overcome the weaknesses easier? And I think for Utah State, UNLV might be a good matchup in that regard, where it's been a minute since they've played them. Not forever, but it's been a minute, and UNLV might be riding high. They might be thinking, okay, we beat this team twice, but Utah State's going to come into that matchup having absolutely been blown apart twice, knowing what we were trying against them the last couple of times just didn't work. We've got to try something new. And UNLV, while their coaches are going to be smart enough not to just recycle the same thing, the players, bit younger, bit more of head cases in some aspects, where they may not buy into that as much. I'm making some assumptions here.
Yeah.
But it's possible that could be what gets the Aggies a win over UNLV if they meet in the second round.
Well, it was interesting if it goes, the bracket goes the way I have it filled out, Utah State would face UNLV, a team that UNLV beat Utah State in both of their meetings in that bracket, but also further down, New Mexico and Boise State would face each other. Boise State beat New Mexico twice.
Yeah. But it's been a while since they faced each other. So
yeah. But I've got Boise State advancing as beating New Mexico 3 times, but I have Utah State advancing, bucking the trend. So I don't know. It's interesting. Well, the other teams
you've also got Utah State completing the 3-peat against the Broncos. So.
Right. So yeah, it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
But what makes it fun to watch these games?
And tournament environments just change a lot of everything. There are players who will rise to the moment. There are players who will shrink. Like, does Draw Gibbs Lawhorn shrink when playing in a tournament environment, even though it's his home court, or does he rise to the occasion as he has for the last 2 months? Does he get even better in a tournament environment? Or to be honest, tournament environments are where guys like him can really thrive. So I wouldn't expect him to shrink, but like there are instances where, does Miles Byrd rise to the occasion on offense, or does he shrink a little bit? Reese Dixon Waters, do guys on Wyoming like Naz Meyer or Leland Walker, Demarion Dennis, you look at Nevada, Corey Camper, Elijah Price, like go down the list. Do guys rise to the occasion, or do they falter on offense or on defense? Does Utah State's experience win out in March, where they're a more experienced team, understand, what, matters in getting to these championship games? We'll see how all that helps. And then the fact, how much does rest help? Utah State will have a rest advantage over UNLV and Wyoming. Finally getting basically their first bye in months, because they'll get to go from Saturday to not playing until Thursday. So they'll get nearly a week off. And then UNLV will have had UNLV and Wyoming, again, whichever wins, they'll have to play at 12 p.m. And then 24 hours later, they're playing again, 12 p.m. local time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll have the full play-by-play, the pregame before on KVNU on Thursday afternoon, starting at noon with KVNU Game Day. Looking forward to hear from Stockton Jukes, J.D. Walker, and Jalen Moore as they set up the Mountain West Conference tournament for the Aggies.
All right. That is going to do it for us on today's show. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be handing it over to the Utah Mammoth. The YouTube stream sadly will end as well. We've got some things to take care of as Eric and I both prepare for our trip to Las Vegas. So thank you so much for listening or watching on YouTube, or again, listening on 106.9 The Fan, 1390 AM The Fan as well. And we'll be talking to you guys later this week as we continue coverage of the Utah State Aggies.